The arrival. It was 2013. 5 college friends, Jordan, Melissa, Aaron, Beth, and Chris, had just wrapped up their spring semester. They decided to rent a secluded lake house deep in the woods of western North Carolina. The listing boasted private lake access, a dock, canoes, and no neighbors for miles. The kind of quiet you only realize was too quiet once it's too late. They arrived on a Friday afternoon, music blasting from the car, spirits high. The house was old but beautiful, weathered gray wood siding, ivy creeping up the posts, and windows that looked out over the still waters of the lake, the kind of place that felt untouched by time. They unpacked, cracked open drinks, and settled in, but Jordan noticed something weird right away. The birds, or rather the lack of them. No chirping, no fluttering wings, just silence, the kind that pressed in on your ears. Jordan, dude, we're in the middle of nowhere. Maybe even the birds need a vacation. They all laughed, and that night they had a bonfire by the lake, but something or someone was watching them. The next morning, Melissa woke up to find her suitcase completely unpacked. Every item of clothing was neatly folded and stacked on the floor. At first, she thought Beth had done it as a joke, but everyone denied it. Jordan even joked that maybe a raccoon had developed OCD. But it wasn't just a suitcase. Chris said he'd heard footsteps outside his room the night before. Slow, deliberate. He figured someone had gotten up to grab a snack, but none of them had left their rooms. Not even once. They tried to shake it off. They went canoeing, barbecued, laughed, drank, tried to feel normal. But that night, as the sun sank into the lake, Beth swore she saw someone standing at the tree line across the water. She only saw them for a second. A figure, tall, thin, pale. It was probably just a hunter, or someone from the next cabin over. But there was no next cabin. Remember? They were miles from the nearest road. That night the lake was calm, too calm, and then the knocking started. At exactly 2:13 a.m., there were 3 slow knocks at the front door. Not pounding, just controlled, measured. Chris got up, looked through the peephole. No one. He opened the door just a crack. The porch was empty, but something was off. There were wet footprints on the porch, bare feet, leading away from the door, not toward it. The next day, things escalated. The group found deep claw marks on the dock, not from an animal, more like something dragging nails. 5 distinct grooves, each nearly 6 feet long. The canoe was overturned, oars missing. Aaron said, "We're being paranoid. It's probably just local kids messing with us." That night there were no knocks. Instead, the power cut out at exactly midnight. Their phones were dead, not low battery, drained, not even a flicker when plugged into power banks. Flashlights flickered, batteries, new that morning, now dead. And then Beth screamed. She said she saw someone crawling on the ceiling of the hallway, not walking, crawling. Its limbs were bent the wrong way. It stared at her with eyes too large for its face, black, glistening like wet marbles. It didn't blink. It just stared. When they rushed into the hallway, it was gone. But the ceiling, dust disturbed, scratches along the paint. They barricaded the doors and windows, sat in a circle in the living room. Chris kept saying, "It's in the walls. I hear it breathing." Melissa was crying. Beth had scratched her own arms from panic. And then, silence for hours. Just when dawn was breaking, the power flickered back on. Phones lit up, batteries full. No one could explain it, but they didn't stick around to ask questions. They left everything, bags, clothes, cooler, piled into the SUV and peeled out of the gravel driveway. As they rounded the bend away from the lake house, Jordan glanced in the rearview mirror. On the roof of the house it stood, watching, its head cocked to one side, still, unmoving. It didn't chase them. It didn't have to. It had already marked them. When they contacted the rental owner a week later, they were told the house hadn't been rented out in years. It had no power, no working plumbing, no listing, no record of their payment. The link? Gone. To this day, none of them speak about it. Jordan moved across the country. Beth is in therapy. Aaron never returned to the woods. And Chris, well, Chris went missing 6 months later. His car was found abandoned beside a different lake. Sometimes the silence of nature isn't peaceful. Sometimes it's a warning. It was Memorial Day weekend 2017. Tom, 28, recently single, a graphic designer, needed to get out of the city. After a rough breakup, his mind felt cluttered, chaotic, so he rented a small off-the-grid cabin about a mile from the edge of Devil's Lake State Park. It was meant to be peaceful, solitude, some hiking, a little photography, just him, his camera, and the woods. Tom arrived Saturday morning. The cabin was simple, wooden, single floor, no TV, no Wi-Fi. He liked that. Stripped down, he unpacked, hiked a short trail down to the lake, and stood at the shoreline. The water was still, dark, and for the first time in months he'll goit boom That night, Tom took a swim in the lake. The water was cold but refreshing. He floated on his back, looking up at the sky. Not another person in sight, but when he woke up the next morning, his skin was burning. Red blotches had formed on his legs and arms, almost like welts, but itchy, angry. He assumed it was poison ivy, or maybe insect bites, but it didn't itch like poison ivy. By noon, the rash had spread. His eyes were bloodshot. He had a fever and something else, something worse, the hallucinations. At first it was small things, movement in the corner of his eye, shadow shifting that shouldn't be there, a face reflected in the cabin window. But when he turned, no one was there. He thought it was the fever, or maybe dehydration. He tried to call for help, but there was no signal. That night, the dreams came, or maybe they weren't dreams. Tom couldn't tell anymore. In them, he was standing on the surface of the lake, not floating, standing. The water beneath him was black, rippling with something alive, something moving just below. He heard whispers, not in English, not in any language he recognized. They were ancient, like stone grinding against stone. He woke up screaming, drenched in sweat. When he checked the mirror, the whites of his eyes were gone, just red, inflamed. And when he blinked, he swore he saw something squirm beneath the skin of his face. Desperate, Tom decided to hike to the ranger station the next morning. It was a 2-mile trek through the woods. He barely made it a mile before he collapsed near the lake's edge. And that's when he saw it. Half buried in the mud was what looked like a stone carving, but not a statue. A face, elongated, fanged, with hollow eyes and something written beneath it in a language Tom didn't understand. He reached out and touched it. The stone was warm, almost pulsing. He felt something surge through his body, a vibration that hit deep in his chest and stomach. And that's when he blacked out. Tom was found the next day by hikers who spotted him lying near the lake, face down, unresponsive. He was taken to a local hospital. Doctors treated the rash and the fever, but couldn't explain them. His skin eventually cleared up, but his eyes remained bloodshot for weeks. He said nothing about what he saw, not to the nurses, not to the police, not even to his family. When asked why he was out there, he just said, "I needed to be alone." But here's where it gets strange. 3 months later, Tom started drawing symbols, dozens of them, not just doodles, intricate, symmetrical runes. He claimed they just came to him. He'd never studied ancient languages or symbology, but he filled entire sketchbooks with them. One of his friends, a hobbyist in ancient cultures, recognized some of the symbols. Sumerian. Others, unknown. Tom's behavior grew more erratic. He stopped eating meat, avoided water, and he never ever went near mirrors. He moved away from Wisconsin the following spring. He doesn't talk about that weekend anymore, but he did leave behind one note, scribbled on the last page of a half-burned journal, found by the next renter. It read, "Something is alive beneath Devil's Lake, and it knows my name now." Whether Tom stumbled onto an ancient curse, a hidden sickness in the lake, or simply lost his grip on reality, one thing is clear: something changed him out there, and maybe Devil's Lake got its name for a reason. Stay safe out there this Memorial Day, and if you're heading into the woods, don't touch anything that looks like it doesn't belong. Thanks for watching. This video nearly crashed on me almost 3 times, so redoing this was a trying task, friends. But for you folks, it's worth it. Adjusting to the updated version of my editing software hasn't been easy. Oh, how I wish to return to more simple time. But alas, I must improve and get better. I can't always play it safe. Oftentimes experiments can lead into interesting and unexpected results, favorable or not. But anyway, I want to take a moment to thank you viewers for the views of late on these videos, but mainly the shorts. It means so much to me to see that I can entertain you guys and gals with my stories. I hope to see much more of you join the community that cannot look away from the darkness. But anyway, if you enjoyed this story, like, comment, and subscribe for more real, true horror, while also clicking that notification bell to get updated on my next set of videos for your fine viewing pleasure. And this Memorial Day, be careful where you place your flag, because we're always watching.